Hey guys, Matt and Jen here with Canvas Crew. This is our fourth edition of Canvas Connections. We're super excited. Today we have Nina Tulio, who one of our new recent favorites. She's been a salon owner, a stylist for many years, and now she's an amazing salon coach with One N Agency. Hi, Nina.
Hi guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Likewise. We are super pumped. We recently became aware of you through some social media stuff, and we've been following you ever since, and we love everything you stand for and everything you're coaching about. There's so many synergies here, so we're super excited for today.
Connection. So thank you guys for just giving me the time to share some good info and getting the conversation started.
So obviously we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but we created Canvas Crew because we wanted to give beauty pros a platform that showcased who they are beyond Instagram. And as much as we love Instagram, we just feel like there's not enough there, right? To really highlight their work, showcase their value, and make them as much or as marketable as they can be, right?
Right.
So we know we talk about this. We talk about KPIs a lot, key performance indicators. Talk to us a little bit why those are so important to follow, set benchmarks for yourself, and really be able to grow with these numbers.
So goal setting in general is just very important. So yes, the key performance indicators are incredibly important, and I'll run through them in a second, but also goal setting in general, both personally and professionally, because I feel like your personal life and your professional life, they run parallel, right? So I feel like it's important to goal set. And, actually there's a statistic out there that says if you are goal setting, you're 10 times more likely to achieve the things that you are striving for in your life and in your business. So the key performance indicators would be more of like your business goals that are based on numbers or percentages. And the ones that we really focus on the most, there's different ones for salon owners and hairstylists, but I'll run through a few for salon for hairstylists. So obviously the first one is your service sales. Service sales, you should be tracking these actually daily, weekly, and monthly. And when you're talking, I can't really give you a goal per se, because it's going to be different for everybody at every level that you are in your career. However, what I do recommend is that you should be increasing that goal between anywhere of 10 and 30% year over year. And you have to figure out what that number is for you. So increasing that every year, of course. And then obviously you have your RTS, which would be your retail to service number. And that's important because you want to know how much retail you're selling against your service goals. So typically, on average, I like to shoot for the stars. So I always aim high. Industry average is between 10 and 12%. But honestly, the average that salons are at, the majority of them could run anywhere between 5 and 8%. So it's an area that we're always constantly working on in this industry. And so 10 to 12 would be ideal, but however, 15% would be amazing. And how you figure that out is obviously you would just take the number of service sales. So if you're doing $2,000 for the week, 10% of that number would be $200. So you should be doing at least 200 in retail. And then we talk about average ticket, which is a little bit about what we talked about when we did our live. And the average ticket, I feel, is really the driving force to understand and know how many heads you should be doing. It really breaks things down a lot smaller for you in terms of your service numbers. So if you know that your average ticket is $100 and your goal is $2,000 a week, then obviously you know that you have to do 20 heads at $100 average ticket. And so how you figure out your average ticket is you take the number of services per day, the service total per day, and then you divide it by the amount of heads that you have actually done for that day. You can do it day, week, and month. And then we talk about one of the other things which is so incredibly important, and not a lot of people want to spend time talking about client retention. But client retention, I'm sorry, I'm all about getting new guests in your chair, but if you're not doing everything that you possibly can to keep them, you just wasted a ton of time, money, and energy. So we always want to focus on the guests that we have, because those loyal guests are more likely to send your referrals.
Right.
So the key performance, or the benchmarks, I should say, for retention is, and again, this varies depending on if you have a level system in your business, but typically you should at least be retaining 50%, at least for new guests. And if you're up in the high, if you're a senior stylist, that number will be higher. And then for your existing guest retention, which is a client that has returned to your space at least 3 times, they should be between 75 and 85% at least. And again, that could range depending on the level that you are. And then last but not least would be your percentage booked. So that would be your productivity for the day, the week, and the month. And your productivity is so important to, I always encourage my stylists to track. We had tracking sheets that they could, that they had hanging on in the back room, and they would track every single day. And they actually started to measure their growth. And percentage booked basically is the amount of hours that you're working per day. And then you actually look at the amount of hours that you're actually booked for the day. So if you work an 8-hour day and you're busy 4 hours out of that day, then you're 50% booked. The benchmark for that is always at least 85%. And that obviously when you're at, if you're at a junior level or a new talent, that will be a little bit lower, and it will climb as you grow, within your business. But those are the top. There are tons of others, especially, pre-booking is another one that's important to look at. But I would believe that those are the top key indicators that you should be tracking every day.
Now, I have a quick question too. So those are all great. We love them. We agree with you. Those are the top. Now, if you're a young stylist, what from a tip perspective do you think would be a good one just to focus on to help grow them pretty quickly or grow? I know there's different things that they're going to be doing, so it's growing, whether it's your average ticket or clients, but what do you think is one they should just focus on if they can?
So for new stylists, I actually like to get them in the habit of focusing on pre-booking, because pre-booking can be uncomfortable, because a lot of stylists feel like they're selling the guest at the end of the service. Like, oh, I don't want to ask them to rebook because they think I'm going to, try to, it comes off like they're selling. But in all actuality, you're just getting them on a routine. And I feel like the sooner you start doing that and get that as part of your script, the better off you're going to be. Because to me, I look at pre-booking as securing the bag, and the bag is the money. So when you look ahead at your book 4 to 6 weeks ahead, wouldn't you rather see your book be filled and know that you're guaranteed this amount of money coming in 4 to 6 weeks, as opposed to thinking, oh my gosh, I only have 4 appointments in the next 4 to 6 weeks. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to make all of these expenses work? So pre-booking, I feel, is incredibly important. And then also average ticket too, just to talk about and get in the habit of those add-on services right off the rip. So they're so comfortable as they're growing in their career. So those would probably be my top 2.
Right. So coming from a proactive place versus a reactive place is much more comfortable. But also there's a lot of metrics out there. And I know, like, I'm not a numbers person, and there's a lot of people that are not a numbers person, but I think just to break it down, it's one day of sitting down with this exercise of understanding where you are with all of those numbers that you talked about. Mm-hmm. And then just creating those goals on a daily level, right? Digestible goals, because when they become like monthly goals, sometimes it's like, oh, this is such a big goal for the month. But when they become daily goals, it's like, okay, I come in the morning and I'm really excited about hitting this daily goal. And it makes your day that much more exciting. I mean, for me, I know it would make me that much more excited to be like, okay, I'm 3 away, or I'm 2 away, or this is really exciting. Or, backing into, I want to buy my dream house or buy my dream car. These numbers are critical for growth. And so I think when you make them exciting, or get, when they become that exciting, I think everybody's driven to just sit down with you or, whoever that person is, and say, okay, what are these numbers? What do they mean for me, and how do I improve day by day and meet those monthly goals? So I think it's super, super, super powerful.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like that you also showcase in the break room, the productivity, because I also think it's kind of a gamification, right? Because you want to compete,
right?
You want to do better than the other staff members, and you want to really keep it going. So I think that's smart too.
So can we find a worksheet on your website about this stuff?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have a free tracking sheet that they can download and make 1 million copies of. So it has their goal on the top. So whatever that is, if they want to do $100,000 in service sales, and then they would be able to break that down and break the goal down per day. So they know exactly what they have to do, whether they're working a 4-day week or a 5-day week. They'll have to work the math on that. But the sheet actually will give them the tool itself to really hang it in the back room or keep it in your iPad or whatever you're comfortable with. That way you're tracking it every day. And I can tell you, and not because it's my tracking sheet, because it's just a tracking sheet, right? I'm not doing the work. but I've had a handful of stylists, not my own stylists, this is outside when I started coaching, just download my tracking sheet. And the one girl was already over $10,000 where she was last year.
Wow.
And the other girl ended up hitting $100,000 for the first year. She's been in the business for 10 years. So is it a little bit of a pain and a little bit mundane when you have to do it every single day? Yes, but it truly does work. So they can go on my website. Do you want me to drop the link so they can grab it? So it's 1nagency.com/tracking. And they can download it for free there.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Love it.
Good stuff. Okay, question 2. I thought this was a good one. So in this ever-evolving beauty industry, it's so hard to stay relevant and continue to grow. I mean, there's so much competition. You literally every day that you have to have additional education, you have to take classes. There's just so much that you have to do. What are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing out there where people are making that's deterring their growth?
So the first thing that kind of pops into my mind is that, and I think it's shifting, but for a long time, especially with Instagram, which I love Instagram, do not get me wrong, I built my platform on Instagram, but because we are a service-based business, a lot of people were starting to focus on the amount of followers that they had instead of really worrying about the amount of clients they had in their chair. And it could be very, confusing because everybody now, not everybody, most people were equating success to the amount of followers that they had. Yeah. And you can get in your own mind and think, and I've been there too, when I started growing my coaching business, I'm like, I have 2,000 followers and all the other coaches have like 50, like, does that mean that I'm not doing a good job? No, it means that I'm just starting out and I have to work there. But there's a lot of comparison on followers and really kind of, really just thinking about their profession in terms of followers as opposed to the way that they're caring for their guests, or even the way that they are transitioning that potential client on Instagram or Facebook to getting them into the chair. I know a ton of super talented stylists that are very, very busy that do not have a big following on Instagram. Right. And they have a following on Instagram and they're super active on it, but they're not up in the 100,000s or the 50,000s or even in 30,000s. And so I think one of the mistakes is that we are comparing our success and how far we've come in the industry to followers, as opposed to the way that we are treating and caring for our guests. That's probably the top one that actually just kind of popped in my mind.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's great. I think because if you're providing that outstanding, amazing experience for your guest, ultimately they're going to go on Facebook and they're going to talk about it and it's going to be exciting to them. So I think ultimately that kind of pans out that way. But at the end of the day, focusing on the people walking through your door, because at the end of the day, it's about that human connection and about me feeling like I belong when I walk through that door versus feeling like they're rushing me or whatever the case is. So yeah, no, I think that's excellent. And I think also too, like people get confused, like it's not about the followership, it's about the engagement level. So you can have 10,000 followers, but if you have 2 likes on your photos, well, that's not really,
for me, the focus of my business and my brand, and it still is now with 1N Agency, is the way that how can I help? How can I take care of? How can I cater? How can I love on somebody and really make them feel better about who they are? Because you guys know in this business, it really is about that feeling that you're creating with somebody, especially when they're coming in and they're going through something in their life. You have the opportunity to change that in them. And with me working with salon owners and stylists, it's the same thing. I can relate to their pain and struggle that they're going through with trying to grow a business. I've been there. I feel that. And so I think it's just shifting the focus a little bit and really thinking about how you can level up in your salon, how you can level up in terms of client care and your new guests and your existing guests, and continuously take care of them so they continue to feed you clients. Not everybody's great on Instagram or Facebook. So yeah, that would probably be my top. There's a couple others too, but that just kind of came to me. Believe it or not, there are a lot of stylists that I've even worked with that are getting 3 to 5 new clients a week from Instagram. But they're working the marketing, they're working their engagement, they're showcasing who they are, their personality, they're really engaging with that potential client, and they know exactly who their target client is. Now, if you're not putting yourself out there, will people find you? They may by luck, because they can search with you, they can search with the tags, the geo tags and location and things like that. But you've got to make a presence. You have to be active. So I always say, and people are like, where am I going to find all this content? But literally you should be posting at least 2 times a day.
Yeah. And I think beauty professionals are fortunate because as far as developing content, they don't have to do it. It's literally, they're doing it every single day.
Yes.
So they can literally be posting all the time, where so many other industries, you have to really work to develop good content. So they're definitely on an advantage that they should be taking.
For sure. Yeah. I wanted to add something, if I can, just 1 second, about photos, because if you're asking about something that could be problematic, I do find that there are stylists out there that are not making time to take their after shots. And that is the money shot. So you're doing all of this beautiful work and you've spent all of this amazing time with your guest. Of course, you have to ask the guest if they're okay with you sharing it on social media, but carve out an extra 10 to 15 minutes. That should be wrapped into your service time. So you're taking that perfect photo. That is one thing that I've noticed, and I've done, I highlight guest artists in my monthly membership program, and I had someone come in, she's awesome. The people that are really killing it on Instagram right now are the people that are taking the time to get that money shot. And I know time is money, but that photo could give you and bring you a lot of new guests too. So make the time to do that for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I've even seen like salons like cater their space to like an Instagrammable moment, because then you see it and it's cool. And it's like, oh, I want my own picture for my own Instagram on this backdrop. And so I also found the reverse when going to some salons where people are like, I always forget to take the before picture. So really getting yourself in that habit, because the after picture is great, but also understanding that transformation is even greater. And so I think those are very important to kind of get into that schedule of like, this is part of my process, and just becomes part of your process. So super important. I agree.
I love that tip about adding another 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
To the service. I think it's brilliant.
For sure.
It's
it's worth it.
Yeah. You don't want to rush,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. This is a great segue into our next question. So being in this industry, there's so much pressure to always be on, whether it's social, whether it's trade shows, whether it's beauty events. There's always so much happening, and you feel like you need to be doing all these things to stay relevant, right? How can an artist continue to do what they love without getting burnt out?
Wow. Yeah. And that's a really, really good question. And I can tell you that probably all of us have been at a burnout stage as a hairstylist, and especially as a salon owner. So what I have found, here's the deal. So I am not the best with work-life balance. I don't really talk about it a lot because I'm only going to talk about things that I feel authentic and that I live in my truth, right? So I don't go all in about work-life balance because I don't know what that means. However, what I do think is, yes, you have to be present. Yes, you have to be out at the shows. You have to be on. You're on at work. You are on after work. If you're meeting and going to a networking event, it never ends. I always find that it's important to have a shutdown day, a day where you just check out, you shut down, whether it's also from social media or maybe it's just not following up with people who are making appointments. You kind of direct them into your software so you're not messaging all day long on a Sunday. I feel like there has to be one day where you just completely check out of work. No shows, no networking, no conversations, no DMs, you just have to. I feel that that's one of the things that will help you not burn out, because you have to refuel yourself. The other thing is self-care. Because as artists, we're always consumed with taking care of other people that we forget to take care of ourselves. And the saying, you can't fill or pour from an empty cup, right? So if you are completely depleted, how are you going to give your best to your clients, to your team, to your family? And so filling yourself and taking time for self-care, and I know there's a shift in the industry that I see a lot of people doing this now, whether it's yoga, working out, walking. There's a new app that I started using last year to meditate. I can't meditate because I can't shut my mind down, but now they have guided meditation, which is amazing. And the app is called Simple Habit. And I made a commitment to myself for my own mental health to meditate every night for 5 minutes before I go to sleep. And so finding something that you can fill yourself with, I can't tell you what it is because it has to be for you, but shutting down and filling yourself in a way that is not just, it has to be fulfilling for you. And it could be exercise, maybe it's not, maybe it's hanging out with your dogs or your kids, whatever it is. But I think those are important. And then also education, because sometimes you run into the burnout, like the creative burnout, where you're just stuck and you're like, you're doing the same Bob all the time, like, it's like, what, I need some inspiration here. So the creative burnout, that happens often through your career. It's kind of like this, but constant education always helps with that. You guys know how it is when you go to a hair show or you go to a class, even if it's just a look and learn, you're around other like-minded individuals that are also creative, and you're like, yes, I'm going to get back to the salon and I'm going to hit it so hard, and I'm going to use this one technique and I'm going to level up behind the chair. So education is also important if you feel that creative burnout where you're just like 7 and Bobs all the time. Like, we have to switch it up and offer new services and new experiences to our guests because we don't want them to get bored and leave. So those would probably be my top 3 to stop the burnout.
Yeah, I mean, I am all about the self-love. And actually, if you would have talked to me like 7 months ago, I would have been like, no, I have no time. So being a mom, working full time, I ran 2 teams, trying to be a wife, cook dinner, clean the house. And so I felt like I had to be this person that just showed up for everybody and everything. And it created this really cranky person that was annoyed anytime somebody new kind of came in and they were like, oh, can you come do this? Like, don't you know I have all this other stuff going on? And so I started to recognize, and I had actually a coach tell me, like, you need to just like relax and take time for yourself. And if you don't love yourself, how can other people love you? And it was just like this whole mind-blowing experience where I started to recognize when I started to feel really cranky, and I would get in the car and I would go away and I would take some time for myself. And I started to recognize that coming back from that long drive or coming back after going to yoga class or getting my nails on, whatever the case was, I would be a whole different mother. I would be a whole different wife. I would be a whole different, employee showing up for work the next day, feeling refreshed. And so I think that is so, so super. Sometimes you don't want to step back, but taking that step back brings you 10 leaps forward. And it's so, so, so important. And I totally agree with you on the education. We've been going to shows at least once every couple months now because we've been kind of really active, but you're a different human coming back. I mean, you're making all these new connections. You're now excited. Maybe you had an idea that you never thought you had. And so it totally inspires you in a whole nother level. And so, yes, it's an investment and it's time and it's all this other stuff. But I think what comes from those connections is just like leaps and bounds beyond maybe where you could have been had you not gone. So super important. Yeah.
And then we kind of like to end, this is our last question. We kind of like to end all these interviews the same way, but we always want to we ask all these questions, but what's your ask? What would you like people to do?
What is my ask? So I'm on a mission really to inspire people, influence people really to change their mindset about the industry and the way that it works. So I think, there's such a big focus on hair, and believe me, doing a great job behind the chair is absolute. Like, you just cannot jack people up all the time. That's not what I'm saying, right? You have to give a great cut and color. But I learned a long time ago, and from my mentor who owned over 200 hair salons back, where we're from, he said to me, and I was young when he said this, so it didn't make sense, but as time went on, it started to make a lot more sense to me. He said, this industry is not about hair. It's 20% about hair and 80% about the way that you treat people and the way that you make them feel. And in order for you to make people feel good, you have to feel good about you. And so I'm all about self-growth, self-assessment, and really working on your mindset, because I believe a big part of this industry is your mindset. So I would love more people to really start to work on themselves, because I feel like, and you guys know, because you've been doing this, right? You start to work on you and you start to become a whole other person. And the way that you approach your clients behind the chair, the way that you receive constructive criticism, the way that you show up every day is totally different. And it really, really makes you level up behind the chair. So my ask is that you really start to work a little bit more internal and spend time with yourself, get to know you, and really understand what you want, what your why is, what your purpose is, because that's where the magic happens, I believe. I always say, grow yourself, grow your business. You know, they kind of go hand in hand. So really that would be my ask, is that people just kind of start to care for themselves a little bit more and start to look at the industry, because we're dealing with humans, working from a compassionate space and a loving space, and just showing up for them every day, and giving them a gift of feeling good and looking good on top of it. So that would probably be my ask for the day.
I love that ask. I recently went on this journey for the past couple months, and I feel like just cutting out toxic things, and like part of your diet is, yes, what you eat, but also, did you post this on Instagram? Somebody posted this. Part of your diet is not only what you eat, but what you consume, what you're watching, what you're listening
I posted
to.
But I saw it.
Yeah. And so I think I actually went on that mental diet of just like anything I consumed, anything I spoke about. My husband and I cut out all negative conversations. Like, we were not giving this negative conversation any more light or any more energy than it deserves. And I literally, not only was I a changed person, like my brain literally was a totally different. I would go to grocery stores and like people would flock to me. Just like, hi, how are you? Oh my God, I love your hat. I love your, and I'm like, what is going? It was just like this weird, crazy, magical experience of just like even everyday conversations were like magical. It was just like, what is it? Am I wearing something? Everyone was flocking to me. So I think it's so important, especially as a service provider, to have that same energetic vibe, because I think it just like, I think people will be flocking to you in terms of like who wants to sit in that chair and why, and having those insightful conversations about energetically feeling good. Somebody comes in your chair, they're in a bad mood, right? They're feeling stressed, something's going on. They want to look good on the inside, but maybe you can change their life and make them feel better on the inside too. So powerful. Yeah, I love it.
I agree.
Absolutely. You attract who you are. I always say that, you know, and I am a big believer in that. And so the reason why people were flocking to you is because now you change your whole energy. And it's the same thing with building a clientele behind the chair. When you change and shift your energy and you start to take care of yourself, you will start to see people show up for you. And so, it is very, very, very powerful. And I've been on that journey that you guys have been on for many, many years. I'm still on it. I'm a work in progress, you know, like it never stops. But I think it's important. And I believe that stylists are really starting to see the value in it as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
I love it. We're seeing a shift where people are starting to understand, like, if you have a positive mindset, things will be really, really good.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Nina. I appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome.
Yeah.
You've been fabulous. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Have a great day.
Enjoy your day.